Alright, so I do not remotely remember at all where I left off on here. So this is going to be interesting. I remember last time I turned the game on, took a second to stop lagging. Didn't take very long, so I mean, I guess we're pretty good there. Let's see. Oh, because it said RIP in the song, then Stream Elements is like, wait, RIP? Hold up, something bad happened. Okay, so I kind of remember where I'm here, or this place. It's been so long since I played this. Okay, so we have the battery. Let's give it to Clementine. Wait, bro, where's Clementine though? Where is my map? Can I bring up a map? Is there a map? I don't remember if there's a map on here. Alright, so either way I have to find Clementine though. Can't walk past this guy without possibly assaulting him. I'm trying to remember where it was that Clementine was. I feel like Clementine was one that was like way up high. But I don't think it was back here because I feel like I'm probably definitely going the wrong way. Also, I never realized before if you press A, it makes like their tail like go up in the air sometimes. Or at least, well, maybe not every time. There's twice there. I pressed A because I kept thinking that was like to run though. Meow stick? Well, that's ironic. Exclamation point, Pokecatch. I need to actually type that in, copy that, because the first one I always got to try to type it in so that way I can copy and paste, so that way it makes it easier during gameplay.
At SpeedyFireEagle, you don't own that ball.
What?
Check the extension to see your items.
Oh, I gotta buy some more Pokeballs. Pokemar, give me 2 seconds. Oh, I didn't have to move and he tripped. Ha! Pokeball, I'm gonna go with 30. I sure have enough for that.
At SpeedyFireEagle, you don't have enough Poke dollars. You need $9,000.
How much do I have? Oh, I have 7,000.
At SpeedyFireEagle's balance, $7,194 battle rating, 1,000
I'm gonna go with just
rank.
20 balls. I think I should have enough for that.
2,349 dash 0
I
W.
just gotta catch the Pokemon.
At SpeedyFireEagle purchase
and,
successful.
okay, wow, that was a whole freaking loop that I had to go through. Alright, where am I supposed to go? So the one thing about this game is that there's no actual, like, GPS, so to speak. You have to, like, kind of just adventure everywhere. Well, it's a good thing. It makes it difficult to pick up where I left off. So I kind of remember which one Clementine was. Kinda. I just don't remember where. On hold for a phone call? Oof.
Meowstick has been caught by Chimera Goose.
How long's the hold been going on?
Not happy about all this meowing they can't find the source of.
Where's the meowing? Friggin', that just makes me think, like, if I wasn't on the headset, I'd be curious to see frickin' Maddie and the other cat's reaction.
Hi, Maddie. Speaking of you.
Chimera Goose, hey.
You are. It's totally not a trap. I'm totally just petting you. I'm totally not going to pick you up at all. I swear, you don't come back here.
No, she figured it out.
It's like, it's not a trap at all. Maddie.
She'll like walk up to me and then she's like, nope, I'm not gonna let you pick me up.
What do you think of this game, Speedy?
Friggin' this game is pretty good, but like, oh man, it takes me a second to really remember where I left off from. Cause like, I have to find, like, for example, I have to find Clementine, but it just says that I don't remember in the slightest bit where Clementine was. So it's like, I feel like I have to adventure everywhere again to just figure that out. I feel like it was here where I left off, but I know I was stuck here for a long time too. I don't think I remember coming in here before. Who are you? Hello? Just nothing. I'm gonna scratch your carpet. Oh no, I'm gonna rub against you. Never mind. Come here. I love that you just actually turn on the radio with my paw like that, though. Alright, so it's obviously not in there.
I get
I
ramen
don't think there's
soon.
any over here. Oh? Let's go. Yeah, there's a lot of ramen shops around here that I kind of want to check out that actually look really good, actually. Actually really a lot of shops in general. I haven't really explored a whole lot still. Alright, so I know the bar's here. Warehouse is there. Clementine wouldn't be in there. What? This was the bar? I don't think Clementine was in here, right? Where are you? News. Tonin. Oh, you're definitely not Clementine. Can't talk to you even. Just gonna fuck up all your bowls. Wait, can I really turn that? Oh. I was really hoping that I was gonna like jump up there and like turn it on or something. Oh, wait, hold up. Can I like... No, 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 no. No, 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 foul. I was trying to get not to like throw the pool ball in there. Well, I guess I can just knock these around. I find it funny though, it won't let me smack these though, it'll only let me smack the white ball. So it's like, even as a cat, I still have to play pool properly. Is it in here? Oh, you're in Celeste. Alright, so this is basically just kind of wild goose hunt, try to figure out really probably just one room at a time where I'm supposed to go.
Hey Speedy, you wanna see something funny?
What's that?
Check Discord.
Check Discord. I have to open that up on here. Yeah, all the kitties. Wait. Then that one picture like dissolved on your wallet? Is that what happened? We're good. I've had that happen before. Like you leave a picture in like that like plastic front or whatnot. You go and move it out, and then it's just the picture's on the plastic, not in the picture anymore.
Onto my phone case.
Oh, in the phone case. I've had that happen with my wallet, I think.
Smoke weed every day.
Hey, I got you. Let's see. Does anyone in chat by chance remember where Clementine is? I actually do not remember. I feel slightly lost, and I don't know if I'm even in the right count. And to be honest, that's half it. I feel like I might have to go to the next area over. I think it is maybe somewhere around there. Alright. Cheers, bud.
Didn't she kill what's his face at the end of the Walking Dead game?
Who? The cat? I mean, that'd be really badass. Just like see a cat flying through, just freaking taking out zombies one by one. It's real. I feel like that has to already be a movie. Like, how is that not already a movie? Like even a spoof movie. I feel like someone like in some country has to have made it somewhere. That's why I got to use. I'll take another dab for you. Even though I can barely breathe after that last one. You know, I might need to let my nectar collector cool down a little bit. And dab time. Alright, good to go. Alright, so in the meantime, I actually have no idea where I'm going. And I have my dab pen on me too. So ha! I can walk and dab too. As long as I can breathe. I can't run though because it's my right trigger and I'm right-handed. Using my right hand, I can't really. Well, I guess I could run. And just only be in a straight line, or I'd have to like set the controller down. Hey, there we go. I feel like I'm still going in circles still, but I want to say Clementine's not in this city. No, that's right. And the exit wasn't over there, so that's not the case. And I can't go this way, right? What's this? I actually don't know what this is. Okay, so keep out of there. Did that appear by chance? Oh, I don't think I've looked over this ledge before. Oh, damn. Okay, so I am definitely already up high for sure. Turning up the sharpness, I feel as like that really made a difference in the graphics, actually. I feel like it looks a little bit crisper than it did before, which obviously that's what sharpness does, but like... It's like higher resolution without it being higher resolution. Okay, so I keep going through that way. I've been through that way. Are you up in here? I don't think I've been in here yet, actually. Yeah, that told me nothing. I didn't even get a hit from that one. There. Okay, so this is like where I got stuck before, because I was going in circles, just kind of lost because I legit don't know where to go. So every time I try to go somewhere, I feel like it's the wrong way, where I don't get anywhere. So yeah, here's a dead end. No one's in here anymore. Not in here. Although I thought I claimed that thing. I guess I hadn't looked at this before. Sentinels, they are meant to protect people. And crime maintaining order. But as life became harder in the city, groups decided to rise up. The Sentinels quickly became the hounds of the powerful. They were a perfect tool to keep the city in control, obedient, and questioning and tireless. And after the end with humans, they continued to assert control. Always on duty, relentless. Alright, so let's see. There's a part of me that almost just want to like, I almost want to look online, just like, where's Clementine? It's like, I've been stuck here for like the whole stream basically. Just kind of roaming around. I can't remember how to get out of this town either. Like, I feel like Clementine is here, I just don't know where. Gotta get the names of everyone. You steal our spot, but you can't steal our moves. Pretty sure I'd already talked to everyone in here. I know I already talked to them. Slept on this guy, I remember that. Not in here, because you're the only one in here.
Toki, Manny, what are you doing?
They're freaking knocking over stuff trying to get into their food dish. Or their bucket that has all the food in it, more so. Alright, let's see. Where do I go? It's not off that way. I know I'm supposed to avoid that way. We looked in there. As far as I know, there's no button for a map. That's where it just came from. Already looked in there. As far as I know, there's nothing going on in here. Okay, I remember that was the dead-end alley. I keep finding those like little golden cats everywhere. Let's see, what about this alleyway? Okay, I think this was the way out of the city. No, I think I went this way before too. It just loops back around to another spot.
A wild Hariyama appears catch it using
Hariyama?
poke catch. Winners revealed in 90s.
Try to catch that one! Exclamation point! Poke catch. Alright. You know, I'm gonna be real, I kinda wanna just like look up like in straight where the fuck is Clementine? Cause like bruh, I don't know which way to go. I've literally been here so long. So like I'ma just look up just this one little part here. Then we'll get past that. Then I should be good. Stray, where is Clementine? After battery. So it says I'm supposed to be able to head up towards like Midtown Street towards Clementine's apartment, but I don't know which one's supposed to be that though. It's like, this is where I am right here. That being HD does not look HD.
Hariyama escaped. No one caught it.
Wait, was I actually supposed to go in there? No, let's just reading off that stuff. Trying to get to where like Clementine actually is. I think, okay, this is like, that's way for where I am. I've already done that. I think. Yeah, I've already done all this. Remember that room. Remember going across there. Okay, I have not been here, however, though. See, I recognize all these, some of these places. I remember doing this, because that's where I found Pikachu, but it was actually Clefairy. That's where we got that clip, was here. Which means this this might actually be right where I'm trying to head here, I'm thinking. Where are you headed? Where's Clementine? Is it in there? No, that's just remembering that. Try to skip forward past that, if I can. I'm so lost, bear with me. Oh, I can run through there? Oh, shit. Wow. Oh my god. That was the part that was really obvious. I didn't think I could go through there. Oh my god. I literally never would have like tried to even test that freaking roadblock. Cause like all talking dancers like, oh yeah, they can't dance or whatnot. I didn't think about going past that. And it's just like, nope, this is a dead end. I'm going the wrong way. It's not this way. Where was that? That was this way and to the left, I think? No. Here we go, it's right here. See, I didn't know I could just go right on through. Wow! Oh my god, with how long I played this? I didn't know it was that easy. Oh my god, I never would have figured that out. So I wasn't supposed to let these things spot me. Okay, I am fully up to speed now. I remember where I left off exactly now. Alright, we're making progress. That's what I was trying to do. There's no way that doesn't see my face. There's no freaking way that didn't see me. I was literally lit up by it. I can make it all the way. Here we go. Oh, hello? That one? Wait, is that one moving? Oh, that one's moving! Oh, I fucked up. Ooh, don't go around the corner. Don't go around the corner. Oh, hello. If I don't move, it doesn't see me. The cat's in suspense. Just see the cat just staring there and moving. Not moving in muscle. Oh, it figured me out. Oh shit, run! Oh, no. How do I? Oh fuck. Wait, how do I? I'm good now, right? Am I good now? No, I'm not. Shit. This way. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. No. See, I keep running away from like one, but I'll run into another by running away from that one. Okay, I think they're away. So they're downstairs, which means upstairs should technically be clear-ish. Okay, those are going downstairs. Sweet. They're distracted. Ooh, look the other way. Shit. Ooh, we got through that, no problem. Oh no. Okay, I just didn't look the other way on that one. Alright. Upstairs. See, I knew I had to go up. Ooh, not that way. Except I think I do have to go that way. Whoa! That didn't work. Ha! Hole in the wall. Incense? I don't know if this is the right room, actually. There's another one of those scenes where it just kind of zooms out a little bit. Clem? No sign of Clementine. Okay, so I am in the right spot. Seems kind of code message. You're gonna have to play with detective, figure out what happened to her. We never did figure out a name for the cat, if I remember right. Answer lies my stuff, and then there's 4 symbols. Sign Clementine. Take a look. Oh, I found the incense already.
Its name is Cat.
Oh, its name is Cat. I'm with. Alright. Let's see, what were the... See, that was the first one. Second one looks like a salt rock type looking thing. There's a UFO, and then a lava lamp by the computer. I guess the computer works. Can I go up here? No. Oh, maybe I can. Ah! Oh, wait. No, I went on the other side of that, though. Oh, message. I feel like I'm gonna have to remember these messages. There's another lava lamp, but doesn't let me interact with that one. Let's see. So yeah, number 3 and 4. I have to figure out those last two. What those last two of those are. Meow. I was gonna like let it zoom out though, like see what it looks like when it does the whole cinematic thing. But I'm gonna take a babe in the meantime. Exclamation mark 420. It'd be really nice if one of my cats would use the cat bed and I can turn on the cat camera. Here's bed. I almost feel like I don't know if I've been at this one before or if I've been at one that's similar to this. Because I feel like the one I was at was very close to this, but it was a little bit like more enclosed. So I already looked at that. There's 2 other items I need to find. Is it that? Oh, I guess it would be that, the traffic cone. I thought it looked like a traffic cone. I just gotta find the 4th note. Is it over here? Let's see, where else have I not looked yet? So I found the traffic cone. So I guess now it's supposed to be a lava lamp. So oh wait, hold up. Lava lamp. That's out of place. The digital lava lamp. Nightclub. Most Blazer, come to the nightclub. Lieutenant Cat.
Smoke weed every day.
I got you. I'm still actually kind of coughing a little bit from that last one. Alright, now we gotta go to the club as Cat, or as Sir Lieutenant Cat. Gotta heat up that collector. Here's mine. circles. That's what they do at 4 a.m. Dude, in reality though, let's see, I gotta get out of here. I kind of forgot how I got in here in the first place. Was this? Oh, the hole in the wall. Yeah, that's right. Oh, I have been there before, a long time ago, that's right. Back when Clementine was in there. So now I gotta go back down to where the nightclub is. I guess I can't take a shortcut, I gotta actually take the stairs. I was gonna say, you tell me I can't jump to that? Oh shit, oh shit. Whoa, I thought it'd be faster than it was. Ooh, fast fuck, you can't hit me. Fast fuck, boy. I don't think I went the right way. Uh-oh. Oh no. Oh no. That was real close, actually. I don't think I got hit. Oh shit. Oh, I just keep making this worse before I make it better. Oh, no.
A wild Smeargle appears. Catch it using Poke Catch. Winners revealed in 90s.
Oh no. Exclamation point Poke Catch. Also, yeah, I see you with the dam. I'm on the right track where I'm supposed to go.
Run.
It's gotta be a little faster than that. Oh wow, lag. That is a new 710. Oh shit! Oh, not this again. God dang it.
You almost had it. You gotta be quicker than that.
Gotta be quicker than that. You know what? Maybe if I just outrun them entirely. That's right, I forgot. I don't know where I'm going. You know, that's not going any better than I want it to. Ooh, this is not the right way! I don't know where I'm going. Actually, is this the right way? No, this is not the right way.
Run.
Run. Box! Hold up. You don't see me. You don't see me. I'm in the box. Can't see me.
Smeargle escaped. No one caught it.
Gotta wait for him to leave. Good to go. Alright. Oh shit. See, at first I thought those were just the tiles. I didn't realize that was its field of view for a second. Let's see, so to get downstairs, it's not that way. Luckily I saw there was a box just right there. What if I meow while I'm in the box? Will they notice me? All of them at the same time. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Hold up. Can they do anything to me while I'm in the box, though? I'm in danger. Oh, there's more of them? What if I just, like, get all these here and then I just, like, fucking outrun all of them? Because then, like, they won't keep... No, that's a terrible idea. They'll definitely catch up to me. So I was saying then there wouldn't be any ahead of me. They'd be all behind me. That's a bad idea. Yeah, no, I need to take a nap right now. Just fucking let them leave.
Smoke weed every day.
I got you. It kind of humors me. They're all like, what's with this box? Hold up. This box sounds suspicious. I don't know about this box though. Okay, that's the last time I do it.
Truly, a weapon to surpass Metal Gear.
Right? The good old box. He's gonna sit right there, isn't he? Shit, why did— oh, fuck! Back in the box! Okay, so the box is pure safety. Good to know. If I'm being chased, just simply jump on a box. That's all there is to it. It's not going to keep attacking the box. I don't need to not be seen jumping
This
the box.
always reminds me of Toy Story.
Right? And he's coming! Back in the box! Press A, not friggin' B. I need to go this way. Can't jump there. Can't jump there. I can't jump anywhere. I can only stand here. Okay, there's a stairwell. Stairwell. Can I not jump there? Nope. Ooh. Ooh, no, no, you don't see me. Can't see me. You don't see me. Oh shit, you see me. You don't see me. You don't see me. You don't see me. You don't see me. Is this actually working a little bit? Hold up. Did I actually just hide behind the pillar? Holy crap, that actually worked. I just pulled a freaking Looney Tunes on it. Or no, Tom and Jerry. That's more like a Tom and Jerry move. I mean, then again, I am playing as a cat, so to be fair, it all makes sense now. You never know when there's gonna be a cat there. You might just be behind the other tree or something. Gotta go to the nightclub. Hello, fellow humans. It's not for me. I think Bell's just gonna let us in. Climb it back? Hold up. Is there something
Did
open
we
back
just
there I didn't
discover
see
a
before?
name? I like Tom.
Tom? It could be Tom, yeah. Pulling shenanigans. Where's Jerry, though? Oh, hey.
Breakdancing robot.
So what we're gonna be seeing? I remember seeing that I can jump up here before. How did I do it? Ha! Hello there. It wants to. Okay, I was gonna say it wants to let me interact. Okay. Guess we didn't have anything to say. Hello there, I'd like to get past your window, please. Want to party with us? Wait, so like you just quite literally just brought the cat into the bar. It's like, oh yeah, come get a drink. Meanwhile, I'm gonna knock all these off the table. Do I have a drink? No, I have a battery. Okay. Oops. No, no, skip, 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 skip. I meant to jump. There you go. So I need to grab a drink. Beep, boop, sweep, swoop. It's called Zigma dance? Zigma? I feel like there's probably a weird pronunciation for that one, maybe. Just the way the spelling is, maybe. Oh. Where is he? Can I grab a drink from here? The dumbwaiter. Yeah, I found that on accident.
That robot had a dab pen.
I didn't even notice. Wait, hold up. Which robot? I gotta go back for that. Hold up. That's all I go drinking. Can I like take one of these drinks so I can give it to the other guy? Because he has a lever that I feel like I'm probably gonna need. I mean, I haven't found a use for it yet, but it's up here. Nah, nothing up here. I can just be a cat, just run up and down the stairs. Freaking my cat just loves doing that. Except she'll like go to like about like the 4th or 5th step down and just freaking launch herself and jump the rest of the way down.
Right when it was on screen just now.
Nah, I actually didn't even notice, to be honest. I was just ironically taking a dab. I can't move the camera from there. I can take that though. Which one had a dab pen? Was it the one in the coat that I was supposed to find? I legit didn't even see which one it was. Alright, I got the lever handle. Don't know what it's for yet. I got it.
There was a scene with 2 robots before you found the dumb waiter.
Oh, okay. When it was the guy, like the private area or whatnot. That's what I'm trying to figure out, is how to get there now. This way, what can I do with it? There's an option for Y, but it won't let me do it. I'm so confused. Unless I need something for that. Hey, that might be it. I might be missing an item. feel like there's something that I'm missing. Not sure what though. I don't think I can talk down. Okay, interact with those. Was I supposed to go down here? Let's see, I have a lever. Where can I put a lever? This down here is just for the memory. I almost have a strange feeling that might just be it. Because I don't think there's anything else down here.
A wild bronzong appears. Catch it using
go
poke
back
catch.
upstairs.
Winners revealed in
Bronzong?
90s.
Exclamation point bogey catch. Good to get. Alright, let's see. Oh, I can go up here. Is there anything up here for me? Oh wait, there's glass there, so I can't really go that way. No, couldn't do anything up there. Oh! I give you the lever handle. So it's for the lights. Okay, so that's gonna be over here. Aha! There we go. Just turn itself back on? Or is it supposed to stay off?
Bronzong escaped. No one caught it.
Let's see, what does the bartender have to say now, though?
I'm excited to see you finish this.
Right? Like, I'm curious to see how this game actually plays out towards the end. I haven't seen like anything like to spoil the end for it or anything like that, so okay, curious to see how it goes. Oh wait, and then is that when I go up here and then do something with this? No. So he goes over to it and turns this. Oh, I'm supposed to jump on top of it. Maybe actual rave going on. Okay, this one's the broken one, so I'm thinking up here is where I'm supposed to be.
Can the kitty scratch the record?
It wasn't letting me. I don't think there is a record there. I think I need to find something to put there or something like that. There's not much up here for me. Is this one that was broken? see. It looks like something over there. See the orange light. Orange light's always a good thing in this game. Ooh. Wait, hold up. What is this gonna do though? That's press the buttons just right to keep these all lined up. Aha! Oh. Knock over all the drinks. Oh, cutscene. Oh, there's Clementine. I just want to point out something. If it's a robot, how is it muffled? That was so like that was the guy I think that was in that one dad pen. That's what you were saying. This is money. Oh. That's it. Game over. Right? No. I'm wrong. I'm wrong. Okay. What? I took the thing on my back. Well, I'm just in a cage now. What do I do? Wait. I feel like I'm supposed to break this against the pipe. Haha. I don't have my buddy anymore. I'm just a wee little cat now. I don't have nobody beside me. If I press up, nothing happens. Jail? Ooh, new chapter. Oh, I can jump up on the ledge over here, I didn't realize that. Ooh, almost missed that jump. No, I shouldn't jump down it, dang it! So hoping I can land on top of that crate. Okay, there we go. short circuiting? Sounds like the freaking 90s pinball game. Or not 90s, early 2000s. I don't have any way to scan something, I just have to find like a regular way to get through somewhere. And avoid these things. Can I get past him without him seeing me? I don't think I can. Do I just have to book it past him? Unless... Oh, there's a different one downstairs? Where did that one, not this one? I'm gonna try to draw him to me. Well, I guess if he's gonna chase me, he's gonna chase me. Oh no, he sees me, clears day. Either way, time run. Ooh, no. Time dodge. Box. Okay, yeah, I was supposed to do that. Alright, so they forgot about me. Shortcut. Except there wasn't really anything in the way. I don't think I was supposed to sit there that way. It looks straight up. But alright, that made it easier for me to walk through here.
You need to unlock the 1 hour achievement as well.
The 1 hour achievement? Oh, is that like where you meow 100 times within the first hour or something like that? I want to say it was something along those lines. Or is there a different one? I feel like I'm supposed to go this way. Oh wait, hold up. I think I'm supposed to jump up top somehow. I don't think there's anything I can really jump on to
There's
get
an
up
achievement
there.
if you don't press anything for an hour.
Oh yeah, that's right. If you just can't like just sit there for a while. Cause I figured if anything it'd be like when the cat was like taking a nap or something. It just makes me laugh, just like thinking like freaking like when I have what's it here? Like when I turn on like the cat camera or whatnot, just instead just like bring up another game, but then just put like the cat sleeping like that in the corner instead of like doing like the actual like cat camera. If the cats would ever freaking sleep in the bed. But it'd be kind of funny to do that. But computer would not be able to survive doing that, especially on stream. Oh shit. Can I go up that way? Yeah. There we go. Now I'm making progress. Oh, there's no way of translating. Because I don't have what was the I can't remember what the robot's name was now. Oh, I can just fit straight to there. That was easy. My key. Oh, I can't meow with it, which makes sense. Alright, where are we going, Captain? You are one clumsy robot. Trying to be all sneaky, kicking every single can there is.
If you need to break out of jail, bring a kitty.
Right? I love that even in the cutscenes I can still meow. What's really good though?
A wild Pidgeot appears. Catch it using
Pidgeot.
Poke Catch. Winners revealed in 90s.
Oh, there's freaking what's his face? I can't remember the freaking robot's name. I literally said it on his back if I remember right. B12. B12, it was B12. Cool B12. Oh, I can't run any faster than that. He has to
That's
go
a big
first.
TV.
Wait, where? Oh, yeah. I couldn't tell like if it was monitor or like how the thing's set up, like where the red is. Is that what you're talking about? Nope. Alright, just gotta jump through there. Here. Not jump through there. Jump over here? Yeah. Nail that.
Pidgeot has been caught by SpeedyFireEagle.
Shit.
Silent Chariot.
Oh, let's go. Oh fuck. Oh fuck. Oh fuck. Oh fuck. Box. I am not here. I am not here. You don't see me. Oh shit, I almost just ran straight into that. I saw the air conditioning here and I almost just blatantly ignored it. Just wait for that to clear over and then jump. Yeah, we're good. There. Huey. Does that mean the other robots are on alert? Shit. Well, yeah, they kind of were actually. Box. Box. Oh, it sounded like it would have fired. Come on, okay. Shit. You know what? We're just gonna send it. We're gonna send it. Woo! Bad idea. Dang. Well, that didn't work. Okay, so definitely gotta be a little stealthier. Although I thought I had an opening there, to be honest, it just didn't quite work. Alright, so I just need to jump through here again. Jump through here, jump over this, da 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 da, jump over that, jump through here. I was gonna say, I figured I'd jump past that. Yeah, past that. Shit. Ooh, we're good. Ooh, that worked, barely. I did not mean to jump over that, but that worked pretty well. that's turned off again.
I wish there was a way of not watching the kitty die. My least favorite part of the game.
Right. Shit. Box. Where's the box? Box.
I caught Pidgeot.
Oh, let's go. Yeah, we both got it. I think they heard something. Oh, I didn't know I can go under that.
One of Ash's Og Pokemon.
The Og Pokemon. I think I've caught a couple of them before. Oh shit. That does not work hiding underneath there entirely. Yeah. The little clicks I know is returning. Getting past those, I feel like it's gonna be a little bit more of a challenge. I think there's a box down here. Maybe. Oh no. I thought there was. I don't think there's a box down here. Oh no! Shit. Turn to the left, I should turn to the right. I should turn to the right.
Who's that Pokemon?
It's Pikachu!
It's Clefairy!
Fuck!
I feel like if I jumped through that area, I probably would have been safe from them too. So that one, I think I do have to like sprint past them. Oh, I have to start from the beginning of that. Oh, okay.
Emotional damage!
Time it just right for those. And you just go all the way around this. Turn off the lever. Alright. And then I should just be able to go this way.
Lara
Seemed like
Croft
this was the
Kitty.
safest route before, right? Oh, shit, where's the box? Actually. There we go. Oh, I didn't even see there was an opening here. I could just jump through this before. Hold up. In this case, should be able to draw it around to the other side, right? No, it didn't work. I don't think. Oh wait, hold up. That just barely worked because we turned around. Ooh, that's up, boy. You're clear. Got nervous at the end there. He almost fired it off at me though. E12's back. Well, that was just the cat meow on his own. I didn't even do that meow.
Yay.
Yay! This door right here? Why, sure. Shoot. I was like thinking like I was like debating about getting my energy drink earlier. I probably should have, but I gotta open it tomorrow. So at the same time, I do want to sleep in on time or later tonight. Not too tired. I just keep yawning a lot though. Are you gonna open the door? I feel like I gotta go around. Just the bottle I hit. So I can't talk to Clementine. What am I supposed to do here? Okay, I gotta find another way past. Alright, what's up here? Oh? Just give him a little hint. I should knock that one over when I saw him look at it. That works. Oh. So you just gonna throw me up there? I guess that works.
I thought he was going to throw it at the door.
Right? That's what I thought too, actually. And blocking the way. I gotta try to lure these into the cells. Oh, that one definitely sees me still. Ooh, just in time. What's this? Absolutely nothing left to him there. So I see another room off to the side. I know what I must do.
This game has a good story as well. Definitely keeps you entertained.
For sure! Oh yeah! No, one thing I like about this game, but oh my god, it can get a little terrifying! It's gonna be a little difficult. I think I should hit that running out of it, and then by the time it closes, I should be out. Instead of going to the other side and then closing it. I think that's what I should do there. Yeah, the kitty priest.
NANI?!
NANI?! For real. Shit, 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 shit! Ooh, shut the door, shut the door, shut the door! Oh, one's in there, the other's not, though. Shit. Open the door. Oh, fuck. Well, that was slow. Okay, follow me in here. I figured out how to get before.
Emotional damage!
I thought that was like a gunfire when I heard that. Oh man, that freaking surprised me. Oh, I made it. Really? Need to take it down with that one. Ketchup the Dragon, yo, zap! How you doing? What is that? I'm trying to see what that is. Like it. Yo, come through with
Hi,
follow.
I'm Ketchup.
How you doing? Welcome in here. Playing a little bit straight. This is my third time playing it. I think we're actually getting relatively close to the end. I don't know how close.
I'm good, how are you?
Doing pretty good though. I mean, I just had a crap scared out of me by a
wild
few robots.
Helioptile
So.
appears catch it using Poke Catch.
Oh, nice
Winners
face
revealed in
Poke Catch.
90s.
Get that Pokemon shot. I think I can press the right buttons here. On my phone, I keep hitting like the
Now
3
I
little
want to
dots
see a
next to the
Ketchup
send.
Dragon
So, there we go. You're not wrong. I can't go under here.
Ketchup has a very tiny horde. Lots of packets.
Yeah, I forget the next couple lines, but then it goes.
Secret tone! Secret tone! Secret, 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 secret tone! Yeah!
I count my followers as my horde, so I don't have much LOL.
Yeah, give it time. It's the ones that there that count. So what am I supposed to do here? So that door is the only way. I guess I gotta go to the control room? Right.
Helioptile has been caught by SpeedyFireEagle.
Yes! Let's see, so I'm supposed to. Okay, so I just gotta go all the way around. Maybe? I'm sure I can jump up there, right? Maybe that's how I jump back in here. Oh. I was supposed to do that.
At Ketchup the Dragon, I'm now part of the horde. Just followed you.
Let's go.
You have like a god tier beard.
I appreciate that. It's been growing for like, I'd say like 3 years or so now. Yeah, I got the end of it that actually dyed purple, but it's like slowly turning into like a bluish, like light blue color. Because it's slowly been kind of fading. But I've been growing it out for quite some time though now. This does not feel safe. Okay, there we go. I was supposed to jump up there. The letter? Yeah. Okay, there we go. Figure that out. Oh shit, not that way though. Ooh, gotta go. Ooh, no, wait for me, wait for me, wait for me! Wait for me! Oh, no, we really got that jam.
I've been in the hospital for 3 months, but I'm slowly getting back into the swing of things.
Well, let's go. Sorry to hear that you're in the hospital, but just get back in the swing of things, though. We're gonna... Oh, this is a big cutscene here. Remember when I got my appendix taken out, but like, oh man, that was a couple weeks. And a lot of visits I really wish I didn't need to go through, but in the end, though, I mean, I feel better than I did before. That was quite a few years back, like 5-6 years ago.
Maybe
We're drifting
we'll
over
see you
here.
again soon, but you're cool.
Oh, let's go. I appreciate that, though. feels like when you go back into that. Freaking, this is a lot longer than Command than There we go. For some reason, I don't know why, maybe because I wasn't actually drifting, because it was like right after that, the freaking timing. That would be like a clip and a half of like have that playing during that like cutscene. What was I gonna say though? Oh but yeah, I'll have to what else I have to do with this like when I get back around that let's see, so now from here, where do I go? I have keys. Yep, sometimes alright. Fix the subway, get out of here. So then I do here, where? Go. Guess I was just here before. This is closed now. How do I get out of here? The orange light over here. Just made me think it's got something to do with over this way. Aha.
It could be a YouTube short if that's too long for a clip.
True. True, we could do that. Oh wait, hold on, there's a little opening right there I didn't even see. Straight through here. There's the subway.
YouTube short. What about a YouTube tall?
Well, what about you? Well, then what are the YouTube averages? Sounds like about 50-50. See orange light, which means this way. Battery? Hey, there we go.
That implies there's a YouTube middle.
Right?
Chimera Goose. Thanks for
Yo,
subscribing.
Goose coming through with the prime. Let's go. Year and a month. Let's go. It threw me off, like, and Goose, I think he, what was it? Because I know last time was the year,
Ketchup
so then
the
this
dragon.
time was year and a month or whatnot.
Thanks for
And
subscribing.
then Ketchup coming through so as well. Let's go. Look at all the chickens. Appreciate you guys.
Okai420.
Oh shit.
Thanks for subscribing.
And then I saw that
Rodney
pop up
Beans
there.
Thanks
Freaking
for
just gifting out
subscribing.
5 subs like that. Well,
Eco
appreciate you. You don't
091.
have to do that.
Thanks
I appreciate
for
you though,
subscribing.
but wait, hold up.
Papa_Linkus.
I just realized
Thanks
though,
for
like
subscribing.
we're like literally that means like
Jameis
we're one
Lingen.
thing away from its hype train.
Thanks for subscribing.
Well, let's go. Appreciate that too. I was actually thinking about doing that. Oh, the only thing though is the I don't know what it is about Twitch Guru. It's been glitching out lately. To where like it won't like play a smooth frame rate. I don't know what. It's not the computer. It's something about the Twitch Guru. It's been happening to other streamers too. But I do appreciate that though, regardless. Dang, I actually can't see what we got going on there. Freaking frame rate. It's like all freezing up, but like I don't know what. Even my start and zoom screen, and there's one I've got where it plays all my clips, and it'll do that too. It'll just like
I haven't
it'll
played
stutter,
Wizard
won't
of
play them all
Legend in
though.
ages. Holy crap.
I don't remember like clips. That's one thing
That
that's
is
great
an
about
awesome
Twitch. Like it keeps a hold of it. I don't think I've ever played Wizard of Legends though. No, it looks like a game that would actually be kind of fun though. Kind of a little shoot 'em all game. I don't know if shoot 'em all is like the right term for it per se, but like.
That's also my old setup.
Oh yeah. Freaking, I've got some like really old clips because like I've been going at this like for it's like what?
Oh my god.
I think I'm coming up in like 3 years, something like that now. But like, oh man, I got through so many different setups. Speaking of, I don't know which way to... Where I'm supposed to go now. So I went towards that orange light down through here. Put in the battery there. Oh, wait, I need to ask for help, because I fixed the, So wait, there's a subway key. You have power, which means, oh, the key is probably for the actual subway train. Maybe? Or does the key go to where this is? No? Yo, not Thrones coming through with the follow. How you doing? Welcome in. Vibing over here, playing some Stray. Trying to figure out where to go. Oh, there we go. I use this. And then I use the key. Okay, there we go. I figured this out. Cutscene. Let's go. Making progress.
No, it's May at the dungeon.
May at the dungeon?
Mustard the wizard lives in the Relish Tower at the Maya dungeon.
So they're just... And then I already have the munchies too. I'm just like thinking like I just want to see this like all animated out. Alright, we actually got the train. I'm gonna be a cat, I'm gonna freak the fuck out because we're moving on a train, because holy shit. That's a very squeaky train. Granted, a super old one now.
The whole ass condiment crew.
Even got the Arby sauce. Hello, how may I help you? Well, nothing to do there. I'm assuming I just leave? I low-key kind of wish the escalators worked. I don't think I've been here yet. Walled City 99? Where are we? Hold up. They sound different here. They're like new and they're not rusted. Are we in like the actual city now? Enjoy the world's safest city. Surface is locked. Gotta go to the control room. Ah, I wonder where the control room could possibly be. Let's see, what kind of mode is that? The slime. That looks like the slime. Is that like the Slime Rancher one? I feel like I want to say I think I've tried to play that game. I think I got stuck. To be honest, I couldn't figure out where I was supposed to go, unless my game was glitched out, which is also entirely possible. I've been running into a lot of glitches lately in a lot of games for some reason.
I drew it when I was playing Slime Rancher.
Oh, let's go! Oh, you drew it yourself. Let's go. Oh yeah. Looks
My
nice.
favorite TTRPG condiments and sauces.
Wait, am I supposed to inject this now? What am I supposed to? Oh, why? I'm supposed to put something there. What am I supposed to put there?
I think we played that last week.
Buddy's Manga, what's up? How you doing? Which one was that we played last week? One-Handed Chef? Because I mean there is that, but that was longer than a week ago.
I want a hug.
The exclamation point hug. I'm trying to figure out where we're supposed to go here, though. Oh, wait, is it in here? These things like to follow me. Where is this thing you think we want to climb to?
Tie at Buddy's mama.
So that goes here? Let's go. Alright. So, okay, so that's all in there. I need to open this, and I think I scratched the crap out of this? Is that what I'm supposed to do? Yeah, scratch the crap out of it. This is fine. Worked out great. Friggin' buddy's mod of the group high modes, basically. Alright, and we're in the control room. So the entire, this is for the entire city, and there's nothing in here.
Endgame will hit you in the feels.
Yeah. See, if you're saying an endgame, I'm thinking I'm getting there. Getting close. Freaking, when I was playing Horizon last time, like, that got me in the feels
this game
too,
is
though.
really accurate.
Yeah.
A wild Scrafty appears catch it using poke catch.
Who's got a Scrafty in chat?
In 90s.
Exclamation point poke catch. And good to yeah. Meow. There's a radio. Turn up the radio.
That buddy's mama, I thought you meant the Avengers movie.
Avengers movie? Oh, Endgame. See, I can't remember if I've seen part of Endgame or not. Actually, Goose, I feel like you'd know that one, because if any times, I think it was when I was living out there, I feel like it's when I may have seen it.
Not seen the Marvel movies.
I hadn't seen the other first ones though, and that's why I never tried to watch the other one, because like I didn't want to watch it out of order. That's what I'm thinking. I can't remember though, because if anything, we're probably smoking a bunch of bowls too, so like probably one of those times I just probably pass the fuck out on the couch. It's like, oh yeah, that's interesting. Freaking 5 bowls later.
All the bowls.
All the bowls. You know, that's when, you know, having a good old discount at the dispensary came in handy. Good old employee discount back in the day. Oh, I miss those days. Oh, that was not gonna nod back at me. It's not on.
Still sad about your round bong. Is not cool because she never watches movies anymore. Scrafty has been caught by
I feel that though, I'm so out of date to movies. I know there's that one freaking that hit the ground, the ash catcher like broke the neck right off there, I remember. I haven't had too many since then though. Wait, so this is all still okay, so we're at the top. That's weird seeing how close I am to like the ceiling there. Like that is the roof, whereas from down below it almost looks like it was the sky. I used to be way down there. Holy crap, this cat has gone far.
Last one I saw was live action Aladdin because mom wanted to go.
See, I haven't even seen that.
You'll just have to come.
I feel like I remember hearing that coming out. Or I feel like I remember hearing that get released though. It sounds like a plan. I still need to figure out like when I'm gonna be able to like visit back home. Let's see, where do I go? So I'm stuck here. Okay, that is a big ass TV. Oh, that's right, I can't talk to B12 because B12's over here. I feel like I talked to B12 twice and completely ignored what B12 had to say. What am I supposed to do? Wait, there's an orange light here. Let's do this. I don't know. Okay, B12, what do you got for me? Long rows computers need to be turned on. Okay, that's all I had to do. Wow, I was really not paying attention at all. Alright, so there's power to these somehow? I don't see a power button on these per se. I don't think I have any items on me that I can use for that. Actually, I can't access any because V12s are there anyways, so. Can't, wait, now I can jump up here. Nothing there's interactable. find this here eventually.
The keyboards.
I know it's somewhere here. We got it.
Use the keyboards.
Keyboards, Luke. There's like an actual keyboard there. Oh. Turtitor. I see now. Some of them are already. Okay, wow. Sometimes I need to push in the right direction. You know how to see something's off here. Go figure. It's open with the security. Ooh, I can destroy some stuff. Well, okay, so I go through this way, right?
Hide the planet! Hide the planet!
Shut up and get in the car.
car. I don't think this is the right spot I'm supposed to go to. I can't ask V12 for help this time around, it seems like. Mr. Cat! I had to think about that. That was a real cat that meowed that time. I don't know if the mic could pick that up though with noise canceling.
Mr. Cat, there you are. Oh, hi, Toki. Kitties, come here.
Cato.
Got Toki here.
I love.
Turn on the cat camera. Oops, I got tab over. And oh, Mr. Cat. Okay, you're gonna go over there, so Toki, I know you need to chill on the camera. Cat, I'll hold you. Because you like to chill up here. There we go. 2 cats.
My Addy.
This is actually Mr. Cat. Not quite Maddie. Meow.
Cat 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Cat 2 Electric Boogaloo. Are you just gonna bury your head? Are you being camera shy? Yep, you're being camera shy. You're literally burying your face in my arm. Okay. Meanwhile, Toki's in the little cat bed though. Toki's like half the size of Mr. Cat, but he's probably only like
Mr. Cat says
3
snuggles.
Right. He's definitely more of the cuddly type, whereas Maddie, I'm lucky if I can hold her for longer than 2 seconds. Meow. Let's see, Rich. Where am I supposed to? I don't know if I'm supposed to.
She
leave
may be big,
this
but
place.
she's strong.
Right? She definitely will get out of the way for sure. I think Mr. Cat scratched my arm a little bit. But she's
Look
really
for
good about
computers
like
with
rolling
orange
around in
locks.
place too though. Computers with the orange lock, so bye Toki. Toki is off to explore. Would that be in the control room or just elsewhere? Oh, like this. Scratch, 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 scratch. Good to go. Alright, pull this out here. I'm thinking, maybe? No. Oh. Oh, hacks. Literally, it was press X to hack. Gotta be quick now. Okay, so there's like, what, 2 more that are gonna be like that? So this one's here. Alright, that's good to go. Hack that one. Cat scratch really itches. That didn't look like it felt too good. Alright, where do we go? Okay, so we need to go to... let's see. Let's shoot one more. Where is it hiding?
Mr. Cat.
Let's see. Oh, wait, I see it.
Spark, spark.
Spark, spark. Wait, was I? Oh, no, that was B12 sparking. I thought that was like me stepping on something.
Well, Mr. Cat, you're not going outside. Put me out at the door, though. Mr. Cat, come here. Mr. Cat.
Yeah, whatever. Goes outside once. He's like, excuse me, I have very important plans out there I am very late for. Alright, so I disabled those then. That doesn't mean I can just leave. Am I good now? We do have to go to this thing over here.
Hack the computer you just destroyed.
Oh, I didn't hack it. Oh, okay. I skipped a step. Oh.
You're almost done.
Oh. B12. B12 doesn't seem so hot though. Gotta carry him back to the workstation. There's a workstation though. That's okay, so that's in here. Where's the workstation? Oh wait, there, this one. That's it, we're safe. No. No. Fucking, what, 2 streams in a row, god damn it. First with freaking the Dad Horizon, now B12, god dang it. I'm not crying, you're crying. I can't even meow. Something about that last meow. You know, to be fair, I had warning. I had warning. I need a cat.
Mr. Cat, come here.
Me too, Speedy.
Huh?
Me too.
I wasn't ready. Mr. Cat, come here.
I need my tissues. Come here. Thank you, Mr. Cat. Hey. Yeah, no, I'm sorry about that. I'm sure you'll be okay with it.
A wild crickito appears. Catch it using poke catch. Winners revealed in 90s. Cats like how dare you.
Like, what the fuck? You picked me up and I am wet now. What the fuck? You're fine. You're just lead this way. See, you like being held this way. See, you're just fine with that.
Watch carefully.
Yeah?
I cried when I first saw that as well.
Oh, is Mr. King, are you watching this now? Oh, that was my controller. I was like, what the hell? The door opened. Mr. Cat's like, I don't have a single clue what is going on here. But he's actually watching the screen. Oh, I can probably move, can I? No? This is why to stop. Can I just stop the thing from opening? Am I supposed to wait for it to open? Or, like...
Crickito escaped.
I don't
No
know
one
if I'm
caught
supposed
it.
to run around or whatnot, because, like, I can't move unless I press Y. I don't know if it stops the ceiling, but it's opening all the way. I'm letting that open. Oh, hey, Toki.
It's why to stop sleeping with B12.
Yeah. Oh, oh, that's what it was. Oh, to stop sleeping. Oh, okay. I thought it was like, for some reason my brain was thinking, stop opening the, like, ceiling. That's taking fucking forever to open, though. Like, that's an animation and a half. I mean, I know it's not much, but wow, they really dragged that out. Now it's daytime. I think I need to take a dab. Alright, so do I just go this way now? City's open. The city's actually open. You can freely get in and out. Outside.
Now watch carefully.
Bird. I mean, I'm still controlling the cat. The other cat buddy's gonna be here? B12 still alive? Is he in the mainframe? Oh, that's the end of it? Wait, is B12 in the mainframe? Still? Is he still alive? He just got transferred? damn, that was one hell of an ending though for like a game like this. I honestly didn't I didn't expect that to actually be so good. Damn. Let's see with the dip. Huh.
It hit hard.
Right? I wasn't ready at all. Overall, though, it was a really good story, though. I wonder if Psych had ever found the other cast, though, that were in the beginning. I don't know if they ever, like, linked back up together or how that worked.
Beautiful game.
Right? Especially with all the freaking, like, the mannerisms, too, like, they were spot on with that, and, like, they didn't actually do any, like, motion capturing or anything like that. It was all just them just paying attention to cats. They're just cat people that made this, basically. Whereas, like, other games, like, they'll use, like, the whole suits and everything to try to, like, track them, but of course on a cat they're not gonna do what you want because they're just gonna crawl to the ground.
Would be my only complaint.
Not seeing, yeah, like I could have seen them like extending on it a little bit more, trying to like find a way like reunite with them.
You say you're a cat person, nobody bats an eye. Nah, fuck those other cats.
I see, well, see, I couldn't tell if they did it on purpose or not, though. And then, yeah, I'm a cat person.
The whole world loses their mind.
Oh, I know what you mean, Ketchup. But like, well, the cats wouldn't have been able to do anything, though. It's hard to. I'd have to really rewatch it again because like it seemed like they jumped over it and then like it just kind of crashed. I mean, yeah, they're just kind of standing there watching, but it's not like they really did it on purpose. I think. I'm trying to remember how that all started now. It's definitely a good game though.
This was the second game I got when I got a PS5.
Nice. See, I bet on the PlayStation 5 it probably looked amazing too on there. And then it just puts you back at the main menu. Huh. Well, yeah, that's it. We finished off Stray. So yeah, so then now in the YouTube VODs I'll be able, or in the VOD afterwards I'll be able to like cut off after that.
You know,
now I got all 3 parts. I should be able to upload those to YouTube now. So I'll try to work on getting that all put together, try to see what's worth putting in a video, or if it's better to just do the VODs individually. Because I can do 3 separate VODs. I could do that, or I can like chop it up and make like one video with like the main parts put together, basically. But that would take a lot more work. Or I could do both. Just put one there and then also do that, which is actually way more likely you might do. I might see about like stitching them together or whatnot and figuring out something. So, yeah. So now that we got that done,